Yun. My name is Kevin Macho S. Fernando of BSEE 5A, and today I will be reporting chapter 14, the first four topics of this chapter, and our report is about human resource management. So overall, this is only 37 slides. So let's start. First slide. Um, we often hear the term human resource management, employee relations, and personnel management used in the popular press as well as by industry experts. Whenever we hear these terms, we conjure images of efficient managers busily working and going about their work in glitzy offices. So in this reporting, we look at the question, what is HRM? By giving a broad overview of the topic and introducing the readers to the practice of HRM in contemporary organizations. Though, as with all popular perceptions, the above imagery has some validity. The fact remains that there is much more to the field of HRM, and despite popular depictions of the same, the art and science of HRM is indeed complex. We have chosen the term art and science as HRM is both the art of managing people by recourse to creative and innovative approaches, and it is a science as well because of the precision and rigorous application of theory that is required. So next slide tayo. As outlined above or on the previous slide, the process of defining HRM leads us to two different definitions. So the first definition of HRM is that it is the process of managing people in organizations in a structured and thorough manner. This covers the field of staffing, or in other words, hiring people, retention of people or yung retain or pagstay ng tao sa isang company, pay and perks, setting and management, performance management, change management, and taking care of exits from the company to run off the activities. This is the traditional definition of HRM, which leads some expert to define it as a modern version of the personnel management function that was used earlier. So sabi dito sa binasa ko, so yung dati daw na definition or dating label ng mga tao na gumagawa ng work na to is personnel management or personnel manager. Pero ngayon, in the modern days, ang tawag na sa kanila is HRM or human resource manager. So ang HRM daw, sabi sa definition nito, this covers the fields of staffing, hiring people. So in Tagalog, parang sila yung bahala or responsible sa pag-hire ng people, retention or yung um, pagpapanatili ng mga tao, pay and perks, setting and management. So sila din yung bahala na magbayad ng mga liabilities or ng mga bills na kailangan. Performance management, sila din yung nagmo-monitor ng performance ng bawat employees. Change management and taking care of exits from the company. So sabi dito, taking care of exits, sila din yung nangangasiwa dun sa mga nag-exit or umaalis sa company. So sa dito naman, the second definition of HRM encompasses the management of people in organizations from a macro perspective. Managing people in the form of a collective relationship between management and employees. This approach focuses on the objective and outcomes of the HRM function. What this means is that the HR function in contemporary organizations is concerned with the notions of people, enabling people development in a focus on making the employment relationship fulfilling for both the management and employees. So, ito namang second definition ng HRM or Human Resource Manager. Siya daw yung bahala dun sa siya daw yung responsible dun sa kung paano yung magiging tratuhan or relationship ng management and the employee sa isang company. So, ayun, pinaigsi ko lang. So, next slide tayo. These definitions emphasize the difference between personnel management as defined in the second paragraph and human resource management as described in the third paragraph. So, to put this in one sentence, personnel management is essentially workforce centered, whereas human resource management is resource centered. The key difference is HRM is in recent time is about fulfilling management of objectives of providing and deploying people and a greater emphasis on planning, monitoring, and control. So, yun nga, parang dito sa binasa ko na to, parang sinamarize niya yung binasa ko kayo ng dalawang paragraph. Sabi, ang personal management daw, workforce-centered na parang management. Pero yung human resource management naman is resource-centered naman daw. So, next ano tayo, whatever the definition we use to answer whatever the definition we use, the answer to the question as what is HRM is that it is all about people in organizations. No wonder that some MNCs or multinationals call the HR managers as people managers, people enablers, and the practice as people management. In the 21st century organizations, the HR manager or the people manager is no longer seen as someone who takes care of the activities described in the traditional way. In fact, most organizations have different departments dealing with staffing, payroll, and retention, etc. Instead, the HR manager is responsible for managing employee expectation, vice versa, the management objectives, and reconciling both to ensure employee fulfillment and realization of management objectives. So, sabi dito, kahit daw ano yung mga nabasa natin kanina na mga previous na definition natin ng HRM, is parang babagsak pa rin siya sa the fact na ang HRM is parang siya yung bahala na mag-manage ng mga tao in general or people enablers parang para sa akin ng enablers parang sila yung taga motivate parang ganon and the practice as people management. So ngayon kasi parang ngayon sa mga modern sa mga company ngayon parang hindi naman na kasi ang HR lang ang bahala sa halos lahat eh. Sa staffing, sa payroll, tsaka retention. Kasi bawat department yan, meron halimbawa, meron department kayo ng sa engineering. Meron diyan na meron diyan na isang tao na bahala sa payroll, isang tao na bahala sa pagsibak ng mga tao, isang tao na bahala sa pag retention ng mga tao, parang ganun. Ganun na yung modern kasi ngayon, hindi na HR manager lang ang bahala. So next, ito naman, importance of HRM for organizational success. We have discussed the basic concept of HRM and the ways in which it helps the organization meet its goal. In this article or in these paragraphs, we will discuss the reasons for organizations to have a HRM strategy, as well as the business drivers that makes the strategy imperative for organizational success. It is a fact that to thrive in the chaotic and turbulent business environment, firms need to constantly innovate and be ahead of the curve in terms of business practices and strategies. It is from this motivation to be at the top of the pack that HRM becomes a valuable tool for management to ensure success. So sabi dito sa binasa natin, ngayon daw kasi parang um, bakit parang sobrang halaga ba ng HRM or Human Resource Management sa isang company? Parang yun yung point ng binasa natin na paragraph na to. Ano ba yung ano niya? Ano ba yung impact niya sa isang company? So, yun yung matatakal natin sa mga susunod na slide. So ito, the evolving business paradigm. One of the factors behind organizations giving a lot of attention to their people is the nature of the firms in the current business environment. Given the fact that there has been a steady movement towards an economy based on services, it becomes important for firms engaged in the service sector to keep their employees motivated and productive. Even in the manufacturing and traditional sectors, the need to remain competitive has meant that firms in these sectors deploy strategies that makes effective use of their resources. This changed business landscape has come about as a result of a paradigm shift in the way businesses and firms view their employees as more than just resources and instead adopt a people first approach. So sabi dito, isa daw sa mga factors na sa likod ng parang success ng isang business is parang ito nga yung parang HRM. So given the fact that there has been a steady movement towards an economy based on services, parang sabi dito yung mga company na nagbe-base sa services, kailangan pa rin meron nagmo-motivate sa kanila para maging mas productive pa. Kahit naman dun sa manufacturing and traditional sectors, kailangan din merong nagmo-motivate or nagmo-monitor kung nagiging competitive pa ba yung company na to or parang nakokontento na lang sila kung ano yung status nila ngayon. Parang ganun. So, ito, strategic management and HRM. As discussed in the terms on modern day HRM practices, there is a need to align organizational goals with that of the HR strategies to ensure that there is alignment of the people policies with that of the management objectives. This means that the HR department can no longer be viewed as an appendage of the firm, but instead it's a vital organ in ensuring our organizational success. Sabi dito sa binasa natin, ang HR department daw is hindi dapat sila binabasta-basta or minamaliit. Kasi hindi lang ito daw department nito is can no longer be viewed as an appendage or appendix. Parang itong sabi dito sa binasa natin, binasa ko, ang HR department daw is hindi mo siya pwedeng ismalin. Hindi mo siya pwedeng halin tulad sa appendix, 'di ba sa appendix ng tao. Ang appendix is wala naman talaga siyang function. So instead na itrato natin siya na appendix, it is a vital organ in ensuring organizational success. So ito daw HR department is a vital organ or ano ba yung mga vital organ? Ito yung mga puso or lungs, kidney, liver. Ganun daw. Doon mo daw siya may compare hindi lang siya sa appendix. And the aims of strategic management are to provide the organization with a sense of direction and a feeling of purpose. The days when the HR manager was concerned with administrative duties is over, and the current HRM practices in many industries are taken as seriously as, say, the marketing and production functions. So next slide tayo. Importance of HRM for organizational success ulit. The practice of HRM must be viewed through the prism of overall strategic goals for the organization instead of a standalone team that makes a unit based on or a micro approach. The idea here is to adopt a holistic perspective towards HRM that ensures that there are no piecemeal strategies and the HRM policies and measures itself fully with those of the organizational goals. For instance, if the training needs of the employee are simply met with perfunctory trainings on omnibus topics, the firm needs to lose not only from the time that the employee spent in training but also a loss of direction. Hence, the organization that takes its HRM policies seriously will ensure that training is based on focused and topical methods. So sabi dito sa binasa natin, Ang isa daw sa mga goal or practice ng isang human resource management or managers, sila daw yung bahala. 'Di ba ang sa mga companies na ngayon, mga companies ngayon na malalaki, meron sila mga trainings and seminars. So, kung daw walang HRM, parang ang mangyayari dyan sa mga employees na nag-aano ng mga training and seminars, mayroon silang, tama, mag-a-attend nga sila ng mga training and seminars. Pero hindi naman siya related dun sa maaring ikalago niya as a person, as a employee. Pero ang trabaho ng HRM daw is sila yung kailangan na maghanap ng mga trainings or mga seminars na alam nila na makakatulong, alam nila na magiging katulungan sa mga employees para sila mag-improve sa kanilang fields na ginagalawan, fields of specializations nila. So in conclusion, the practice of HRM needs to be integrated with the overall strategy to ensure effective use of people and provide better returns to the organizations in terms of ROI or return of investment for every rupee, dollar, or peso spent on them. Unless the HRM practice is designed in this way, the firms need to lose from not utilizing people fully. And this does not bode well for the success of the organization. So, sabi dito, kasi 'di ba pag may mga seminars and workshops na ina-attendan ang mga companies, parang gagastusan mo yan, transportation, accommodation nila halimbawa sa mga hotels. Ang kung daw hindi mo susuportahan yung HRM sa mga bagay na ito, sa pagpo-promote ng mga ganitong ano sa isang company, parang unless sabi dito, unless the HRM practice is designed this way, the firm stand to lose from not utilizing people fully. Parang hindi siya magiging beneficial para sa company and sa mga tao din nila. At process in human resource management. Each organization works towards the realization of one vision. The same is achieved by formulation of certain strategies and execution of the same, which is done by the HR department. At the base of this strategy formulation lie various processes, and the effectiveness of the former lies in the uh, meticulous design of these processes. But what exactly are and entails these processes? Let's read further and explore. So the following are the various HR processes. So ito daw yung mga human resource na processes sa isang karamihan sa mga company. So una, human resource planning. So dito sa planning na to, nakapaloob dito yung recruitment, selecting, hiring, training, induction, orientation, evaluation, promotion, and layoff. Next naman is employee remuneration and benefits administration, performance management, and employee relations. So, ang parang functions daw ng or process ng mga HR, sila yung bahala sa recruitment, yung namimili, selecting, yung nag-hire, hiring. Tapos pag na-hire na nila, sila na yung bahala sa training, induction, orientation. Parang sila yung bahala uh, sa pagpili ng tao. Tas pag napili ka naman na ito na, ito na yung benefits naman sa mga employees, sila din yung bahala. Halimbawa, SSS or GSIS or ano pa man, sila yung nagmamanage nito. Tas sila din yung nangangasiwa kung performance, kung nagiging performer ba yung isang employee or stagnant siya. Tas shit, ang HR din yung bahala dun sa relationship ng mga employees as a whole or employees to employer. Para sila din yung nangangasiwa sa mga bagay na yun. Strategic alignment of HRM policies. So in a rapidly changing business environment, one may recognize the words, the one thing constant in life is change, by French author Francois de la Roquefoucauld. Ay, hindi ko alam kung na-pronounce ko siya ng tama. Yet, with ongoing change, it can be difficult to know that what we do now and how to do it. The world out there is harsh and competition is fierce. Indeed, the world is changing at a rapid pace. Therefore, both public and private sectors have to plan for the future and prepare for any unforeseen circumstance. This paper will this following statements or paragraphs will discuss the link between strategic human resource management, human resource, performance and reward, and what we know and what and the future direction of strategic human resources. Strategic human resource management involves making those decisions that define the overall vision, mission, core values, and objectives of the organization. So, isang company daw, isang organization or isang samahan, parang ang human resource management, sila yung bahala na mag-imply or mag-establish ng vision, mission, and core values ng isang company. 'Di ba sa mga na kahit sa mga schools na nakikita natin sa schools lang na natin in UST meron tayong uh, mission, vision, tsaka core values. Sa mga companies naman daw, ang nagtatatag ng mga or nag-establish ng mga mission, vision, and core values is yung HR na department, HR management. Sana ba? Thus determining the most effective utilization of its resources. Si Walker naman, isa to sa mga recognized na ano. Walker states that strategic management enables managers to respond to environmental changes based on a defined business mission, uh, vision, mission, and values. Strategies are directional plans that guide management actions in the pursuit of opportunities. In essence, strategies point the way for the most promising changes. There are plans that give direction and address people-related business issues. Human resource strategies are important because they help determine how to manage people in relation to business strategies. Strategic human resource management aligns human resource which is necessary for the success of the organization. So sabi dito, strategies are directional plans. Hindi daw kasi kailangan na sa isang company, kailangan talaga meron kayong strategy, meron kayong plano, meron kayong process na susundin para meron kayong maabot, meron kayong ma-achieve. So, um, in essence, strategies point the way for the most promising changes. So, kung yung strategy daw na naisip nyo is kung i-execute nyo ito ng mabuti, uh, sure sabi dito, strategies point the way for the most promising changes. So, kung yung strategies na nagawa nyo is nasunod yun na mabuti, uh, mag-expect daw tayo ng promising na changes or promising na improvement or pagbabago sa isang company. Next slide tayo. Ito naman, without a strategic plan, ito naman, parang ang pinopoint ng ano na to, without a strategic plan, management organizations as a whole will not be in a position to achieve its goal and objectives as outlined in the organizational strategic plan. So, yun nga, di ba meron tayong mission, vision, tsaka core values. Kung wala tayong plano, kung walang plano yung isang company, yung strategic, yung mission, vision na yun, is parang ano lang siya, goal lang siya. Di mo siya maaabot kung di ka gagawa, kung di ka kikilos, kung wala kang plano. Parang yun yung pina-point out na 'tong, statement na 'to, medyo mahaba lang, eh. Ito pa, another definition of strategic human resource management, according to Johnson and Scholes, can be defined as the direction and scope of an organization over the longer term, which ideally matches its resources to its changing environment, and in particular to its markets, customers, and clients to meet stakeholders or the consumers or the customers' expectations. So sabi naman na tong ni Johnson and Scholl, ang definition daw na ng strategic human resource management, it is the direction and scope of organization over the longer term. So, yun daw, strategic human resource management is hindi lang siya yung pang saglitan lang na changes. Hindi ang ini-scope na to is yung para sa sinasaklaw din nila yung para sa future. Parang fino-foresee na nila yung mangyayari sa mga hinaharap. And yung iniisip nila is magiging beneficial sa market, sa customer, sa client, at sa stakeholders ng isang company. Next. Another widely used definition of strategic human resource management has been provided by Ehlers and Lazenby, who asserts that it is the process whereby all the organizational function and resources are integrated and coordinated to implement formulated strategies in order to achieve the long-term objectives of the organization and therefore gain a competitive advantage through adding value for the stakeholder. Sabi naman ni Ehlers and Lazenby, yun daw yung process na yung isang organization uh, nagfa uh, whereby all the organizational functions and resources are integrated and coordinated to implement formulated strategies. Yun nga, parang ganun din naman dun sa, parang similar din dun sa isa. Kasi ang goal nila is long-term objective or long-term na pagbabago or long-term na changes sa isang company. Next tayo, Boxall naman and Purcell. Yung definition naman na ng strategic management is a process of strategy making, of forming and reforming strategy over a period of time. This is amplified by David, who refers to strategic management as the art and science of formulating, implementing, and evaluating cross-functional decisions that enable organization to meet to achieve or meet its objectives. To a large extent, this definition implies that strategic management focuses on integrating more functions to achieve organizational success. Strategic management as a process consists of the following three stages. Meron dos tatlong stages sa strategic management. Una, formulation. Pangalawa, implementation. And pangatlo, evaluation. Yun ay base kay David. Next slide tayo. Strategy formulation includes developing a vision and mission, identifying an organization's external opportunities and threats, determining internal strengths and weaknesses, establishing long-term objectives, generating alternative strategies, and choosing particular strategies to pursue. So sabi dito, isa kasama daw dun sa formulation yung pag-establish ng mission and vision ng isang company, identifying organization opportunities and threats, parang sila yung nag-identify no maaaring opportunities na i-grab ng isang company and kung ano yung mga nagse-threaten sa kanila, kung anong mga companies yung maaari nilang makalaban or maaari nilang maging kakompetensya, dealing internal strengths and weaknesses, tapos sila din yung nakakakilala sa mga other employees kung saan sila malakas, kung ano yung mga kahinaan nila para alam ng para alam nung HR kung saan sila ilalagay na field, kung saan sila ilalagay na department sa isang company. Establishing long-term objectives, ayun nga, generating alternative strategies, and choosing particular strategies to pursue. So, hindi lang kasi kailangan na sa isang company is meron ka lang plan A. Dapat meron ka mga alternatives na para kung hindi nag-work yung plan A, dapat meron ka mga backup plans na maaari mong takbuhan pag hindi nag-work yung mga bagay ayon sa plano mo. Next. Ito naman, implementation. Strategy implementation requires a firm to establish annual objectives, devise policies, motivate employees, and allocate resource so that formulated strategies can be executed. So yun nga, 'di ba kanina formulations lang. Kumbaga sa ano, plano pa lang 'yun, nagpaplano pa lang sila or ah, all in papers pa lang. Pero implementation, ito na yung bahala na magpatupad nung na-formulate yun ng mga strategy. Sila na yung bahala na mag-motivate ng employee, tapos sila din yung bahala na mag-allocate ng mga resources or ng mga funds or sila yung bahala na magpondo sa mga magte-trainings or magwo-workshop. So, para yung mga na-formulate yung strategy is magiging makatotohanan or ma-execute ko siya ng mabuti. So, yun lang yung parang shortcut nito, ano, parang ganun lang yung thought niya. Next tayo. Aligning strategic human resource management and human resource management. There's a growing realizations among organizations to align its human resource practices with corporate strategies to meet the needs of its business in order to gain a strategic advantage from its human resources. Human resource management is significantly aligned to strategic human resource management and is one of the fundamental policy objectives to ensure that human resource policies and practices are applied by managers as part of their everyday work. Ehlers and Lazenby maintain that successful strategy implementation can be achieved if resources are allocated in a manner that supports the organization's long and short-term goals, chosen strategies, and structure. So sabi naman dito, um, sabi dito, yun daw strategic human resources, uh, parang ang nagiging thought nitong binasa natin is kung nagiging yun bang human resource or yun bang isang company is sabi kasi dito sa last part, maintain that successful strategy implementation can be achieved if resources are allocated in a manner that supports the organization's long and short-term goals, chosen strategies, and structure. So, kung yun daw bang sila yung parang nagme-maintain din na kung successful ba yung strategic plans, kung na-implement ba ito, sila yung nag-check ng mga bagay-bagay na yun. Next slide tayo. More importantly, Ehlers and Lazenby argue that the knowledge era is important for for strategy implementation in that employees are allocated the most important task in implementing the strategy. Organizations can no longer generate profits without the ideas, skills, and talents of knowledgeable workers. So sabi dito, hindi lang daw kasi yung isang company is hindi na siya masyadong nagbe-benefit, hindi na siya masyadong nakaka ah, hindi ang isang company is parang walang mapapala or wala siya makukuha na gain or kita kung yung mga i-hire nila na ano is without ideas, without skills, and without knowledge, without talent ng mga knowledgeable na workers. Tapos sabi pa dito, technologies, factories, natural resources, and capital are no longer difficult to obtain and are increasingly less important in developing and sustaining a competitive advantage for the organization. While capital is become less scarce, the opposite may be said of talent and skills, especially in developed countries. Executive office developed countries. This issue may be one of the reasons for the rise in chief executive officers and executive compensations in the last decade. Demand for talent and highly skilled knowledgeable workers is stripping supply. So sabi dito, kasi sa isang company parang hindi ka naman mag-hire ng hindi alam mo na hindi magiging katulungan sa isang company. So, sabi dito sa last part, this may be one of the reasons for the rise in chief executive officers. Parang ang ini-imply nito is parang mayroon sa isang company, mayroong isang competition. Kung ang pinaka-goal kasi, 'di ba, parang ang pinaka-goal ng isang company, sa isang company is parang pinakamataas, maging boss ka, maging chief executive officer. Para ikaw mismo sa sarili mo is itatry mong mag-improve. Itatry mo na makipag-compete. Itatry mo na i-improve yung sarili mo para mas mahigitan mo or mas malamangan mo yung iba. Hindi lamang yun para ma-promote ka, kundi para din naman yun sa sarili mo. Ayun, parang ganun yung pinapoint nitong part nito. Nasa kalahating na tayo. Effective communication, ito naman. Effective communication daw in human resources management. Communication, as you see in our opening scenario, is a key to a successful career as a human resource manager or as a manager. While communication is likely discussed in several of your business classes, it should also be addressed in an HRM book, which much since much of what we do in HR is based on effective communication. So yun daw, effective communication is a key to success sa isang career ng isang human resource manager. Hindi lang ng human resource manager, kundi ng iba pang mga klase ng manager sa isang company. Hindi, yung the good communication, nadidiscuss to sa mga business classes or sa mga English na mga classes. Pero kailangan daw iba yung level ng parang knowledge mo about communication pag nandito ka sa HR na field. Next tayo. How many times do miscommunication happen on a daily basis? Either in your personal life or at your job. The good news is that we can all get better at communication. The first thing we need to do is learn how we can communicate with our employees. Sabi dito, first thing daw na kailangan mong malaman kasi ang part na to is ando ka sa shoes ng isang manager. Ando ka sa part ng manager. Sabi dito, first thing we need to know is kailangan daw natin malaman kung paano tayo makipag-communicate, makipag-converse, makipag-usap doon sa ating mga nasasakupan or mga tao na under sa atin. Then we will want to look at our own communication style and compare that with other style. Have you ever spoken with someone you just didn't get? It is probably because you have different communication styles. We addressed this in section 9.1.3, communication styles. Body language is also a key contributor to communication. In fact, as was suggested in the late 1960s by researcher Albert Merabian, body language makes up 93% of our communication. So sabi dito, hindi lamang daw yung pagsasalita natin yung maaaring makapag-communicate. Kung hindi, sabi dito ni isang researcher si Albert, May rabi yan. Body language makes up 93% of our communication. So, sobrang laki ng ano niya. Kasi parang ang inaano dito sa body language is parang actions speak louder than words. Parang ganun. Parang mas magigets mo yung tao based dun sa kinikilos niya kung paano siya kumilos, paano siya mag-act pag nandyan ka, paano siya magsalita, paano siya mag-receive ng mga comments, paano siya mag-receive ng critics, mga criticisms, and compliments. Yan. Communication and emotional intelligence. So, one of the most important aspects to good communication is emotional intelligence or EI. Emotional intelligence is different from IQ. First, EI predicts much of life success, much more than IQ. In fact, according to Daniel Goleman, a research on EI, there are five main aspects or domains to EI or emotional intelligence. Now, number one is know your emotions. Number two, managing your emotion. Number three, motivate yourself. Recognizing and understanding other people's emotion. Tapos yung last is managing relationship. Next tayo. First, let's discuss knowing your emotion. If we don't need if we don't know how we feel about something, can be difficult to communicate. It may seem obvious to know that we are feeling from moment to moment, but oftentimes we do not. How we feel impacts our body language as well as our verbal communication. So, tama itong statement na to kasi kung ano yung nararamdaman mo is magre-reflect yun sa sinasabi mo. Bawa kung galit ka, nagalit ka sa habang nagde-drive ka, tapos pagdating mo sa company nyo, parang may nakita ka na isang bagay na ginawa ng office mate mo na tolerable naman, pero nung nakita mo siya, parang doon mo binunton yung galit mo, doon mo binuhos yung inis mo. Sabi dito, how we feel impacts our body languages as well as our verbal communication. So, yun nga. Ito nga yung example. For example, let's say that you just go home from work and had a really crummy day. When you get home, you find that your spouse has been unloaded and dishwasher, the dishwasher yet, as you had agreed. Tie with this with a crummy day, and you might communicate differently about it than if you had a great day. Yan, tama nga yun. Yung parang pag uwi mo, may dinatnan ka sa bahay habang pagod na pagod ka. Tapos parang bad trip ka pa sa labas. Bad trip ka sa work. Tapos pagdating mo sa bahay, parang nagkalat yung mga kalat sa bahay. Tapos pagdating mo dun sa lababo, punong-puno, hindi man lang nahugasan yung mga kiniinan nyo, mga nakaraang linggo pa. Sabi dito, kung mag-iiba yung approach mo doon or mag-iiba yung response mo doon, base doon sa naging araw mo, kung it's a crummy day or it's a great day. On the other hand, if you recognize that you are tired and a bit cranky, your awareness of these emotions allow you to manage them. The third aspect of EI is motivating yourself. Goes without saying in a management or human resource role. This is a key not to only career success but also to personal success. So, di ba din sa binasa natin kanina is yung 5. Dun daw sa pangatlo is motivate yourself. So, kung na-feel mo na parang hindi mo araw ngayon, parang nasa sayo din yun kung paano mo siya tatanggapin. Kung tatanggapin mo siya as negatively or positively. Doon pumapasok ko yung motivate yourself. Kung imo-motivate mo ba yung sarili mo para mag-improve, or kung imo-motivate mo yung sarili mo na magmumukmuk ka na lang sa isang tabi, or sa self-pity ka, ganun. Bakit sila? Bakit ako? Bakit sila ganito? Bakit ako ganito? Parang ganun. So, naka-base pa rin sa'yo kung ano yung magiging uh, reaction mo dun sa mga bagay-bagay na nasa paligid mo. The last two domains of AI revolve around being able to see and understand emotion in other people, which in turn can benefit the relationship. Let's say in the situation above, you get home and the dishwasher isn't unloaded, but you recognize immediately through body language and facial expression that your spouse is extremely upset by something. Seeing this emotion in someone else may help you decide if you should mention the dishwasher or not at this specific time. But what if you didn't recognize this emotion and raise your voice to your spouse about the unloaded dishwasher? It will probably result in an argument. Using this example, I am sure you can see how this translates into the workplace. Emotional intelligence allow us to work better with people, understand them, and communicate with them. So, ang parang main thought ng emotional intelligence is parang ikino-consider mo yung nararamdaman nila ng sabi dun sa example natin mga kasama sa bahay, pero since ang topic natin is about sa company, parang kino-consider mo yung emotions or body language ng ka-office mate mo, kasama mo sa trabaho, mga bosses mo, ganun. Parang kung nakikita mo naman na tolerable naman or kung medyo naasar ka sa kanila tas parang hindi naman okay yung araw nila, kung meron kang emotional intelligence na mataas, parang i-consider mo na parang wag ko muna banggitin to kasi baka mas lalo siyang ma-stress, ganun. Pero kung talagang gusto mo na lalo siyang maasar kahit na ganun yung araw niya, parang sisitahin mo pa rin siya, ganun. Yun daw yung ah, difference ng mataas ang emotional intelligence sa mababa. Emotional intelligence allow us to work better with people, understand them, and communicate with them. Yun nga, parang ganun yung thought nun. Next tayo. Meron kasi dito sa pinipare ko na mga slides, meron tayong matatakil na apat na forms or types ng communication. Ang unang itatakal natin is upward communication. So, upward communication is when the lower levels of an organization communicate with the upper levels of our organization. Some examples might be an employee satisfaction survey using online survey tools such as a SurveyMonkey. This kind of tools can be used to determine the changes that should occur in a company. Oftentimes, human resource departments may develop a survey such as this to find out how satisfied the employees are with things such as benefits. Then the organization can make changes based on the satisfaction level of the employees. Employees might also engage in upward or communication in a given work situation. They might tell their manager their plate is full when they can take on any new projects. This is considered upward communication too. So based dun sa root word na upward, 'di ba upward magmumula sa taas, pababa, down to up, upward communication. So yun yung parang easier definition nito, yung parang yung pinakamababa na bawa sa isang company, yung mga contractual, tapos nakipag-communicate sila doon sa mga bosses, sa mga mas mataas sa kanila, yun yung tinatawag na upward organization. Pero doon naman sa example natin, sabi dito kasi uh, about sa mga benefits. Di mo naman kasi pwedeng sitahin, di ba? Halimbawa, na sobrang bago-bago ka pa lang sa company, tapos gusto mo, meron ko agad benefits, di mo naman pwede na sitahin yung boss mo eh. O boss, bakit ganito yung ano ko? Parang idadaan mo siya sa survey. So, yung survey na yun is ipe-prepare ng HR department ng isang company. So, human resource management ang pumapasok or kumikilos para maging parang harmonious pa rin, para uh, maibulalas mo pa rin yung sa loobin mo kung nakukulangan ka sa benefits, gano'n. Kasi parang hindi mo naman kaya na dumirekta doon kasi baka mamaya tanggalin ka na lang ganun. Idadaan mo ngayon sa survey. Parang yun yung inaano nito. Isa sa example ng upward communication. So next tayo. Downward communication naman is the opposite of upward communication in that the communication occurs from the upper levels of organizations down to the lower levels. A manager explaining how to do a task to an employee would be considered downward or communication. Development of training programs to communicate safety in the organization might be another example. A change in a pay or bonus structure would be communicated using the downward approach as well. So kung kanina, upward, ngayon naman downward. 'Di ba pag downward from up to down, from mataas hanggang sa baba. So dito naman sa downward, ang nakikipag-communicate naman dito is yung mga matataas ang position. So isa to sa mga ano, halimbawa, isa sa form ng downward communication is parang memo, ganun. Kung halimbawa, puro ka absent, ganun, magpapadala sa'yo ng memo yung isa sa mga boss mo. Isa sa boss mo kasi ang taas ng department, tas hanggang makarating sa'yo, isa yan sa downward communication. Example yun. So, sabi din dito, a manager explaining how to do a task to an employee would be considered downward organization. So, kalimitan sa mga downward organization is parang yung mga meetings. Mga meeting para mag-improve yung isang company, mag-improve sa mga kanilang work or sa kanilang pagiging punctual, ganun. Yun yung isang example ng downward organization. So ito ilan sa mga example ng ano. Ito upward communication in a bank. Ito ang inano ko dito is sa bangko. So cashier to finance manager to branch manager. Officer to operation manager to branch manager. BDO to marketing manager to branch manager. Ito parang sa bangko lang to. Sa downward naman, lahat ng nasa baba, lahat ng mga lower na ano is ang nakikipag-communicate sa lahat is yung pinaka-head nila or yung branch manager. So next tayo. Ito naman, a diagonal communication. Diagonal communication occurs when interdepartmental communication occurs with people at different levels of the organization. When the human resource assistant speaks with the marketing manager about the hiring of a new employee in marketing, this would be considered a diagonal communication. So yun namang diagonal is ang nag-uusap naman dito is interdepartmental o yung iba-ibang department ng isang company or iba-ibang ang tawag dito, iba-ibang offices sa isang company. Halimbawa, technical department nakipag-usap sa finance or sa accounting. Yun yung mangyayari, yun yung isa sa mga example ng diagonal. Hindi siya dadaan dun sa pinaka-head. Hindi siya dadaan dun sa pinaka-mataas na tao. Hindi siya dadaan sa mga bosses. Parang ang mag-uusap-usap lang dito is yung mga department heads ng mga company. Yun lang. Ganun yung example nun. So, last example natin ng communication is sa isang company is horizontal communication. Horizontal communication occurs when people of the same level in an organization, for example, a marketing manager and a human resource manager communicate usually to coordinate work between departments. An account manager might share information with a production manager, so the production manager knows how much budget they have left. So ito namang horizontal communication is ang nag-uusap naman dito is yung mga magkaka-level. Mawa, ang manager level, sila yung magkakaano dito, magkaka-meeting, ganon, or magkakausap, magkakakwentuhan, yung mga managerial level, mawa, production manager, tas kausap naman niya is marketing manager, ganon. Tas, bawa, yun namang employee ng technical department, kausap naman is mga employee ng accounting department. Yun yung horizontal na communication na tinatawag. Magkaka-level ang magkaka-converse dito sa part na to. Ito, companies also use social networking sites to keep in touch, such as Twitter and Facebook. So ito nga, since nandito na tayo sa modern times, um, ngayon yung mga karamihan sa mga companies ngayon parang nakikiano na rin sila sa technology. Kasi technology is a great way to advertise your product, to advertise your service, to advertise your company. Itong social media platforms ang isa sa mga super effective na mga ways kagaya ng Facebook, Instagram, ngayon meron ng TikTok or YouTube, pwede ka rin mag advertise ng mga pwede mo gamitin yung technology. Sabi dito, companies also use networking sites to keep in touch, such as Twitter and Facebook. For example, Alcatel-Lucent, a 77,000 employee telecommunication company in Europe, found that using social media keeps a large number of employees connected and tends to be a low or no cost method of communicating. Rather than sending email to their employees telling them to expect updates via these methods, the news is spread via word of mouth as most of the employees blog or use Facebook or other social media to communicate. In fact, Alcatel-Lucent has over 800 group systems 800 group in its system, ranging from business related to ones social in nature. Use of this type of technology can result in upward, downward, horizontal, and diagonal communication all at once. So eto nga. So since na pwede natin gamitin yung technology sa mga kasi lalo ngayon may COVID. Pinakagamit na gamit ngayon is Zoom. Zoom meeting dito, Zoom meeting doon, Google Meet, Google bawa sa mga meetings ng mga companies, ka-meeting mo doon is andun kasama mo yung pinaka-boss. Also, pag siya ang nagsalita, ang organizations, ang form ng communication nun is downward kasi boss ang nagsasalita, tas nakikinig lang kayo. Tapos pag halimbawa, tinanong ka, ikaw ay employee, tapos sumagot ka sa kanya. Ang form naman ng communication na yun is upward kasi from employee to boss. Tapos, syempre, sa mga meeting na yun, magkakasama din mga managerial positions. Ang communication naman na yun, bawa manager to employee, manager to boss, manager to diagonal communication naman yun. Tapos, syempre, pag mga ganun, kasama nyo din sa meeting yung iba-ibang employees ng ibang department, magkakasama yung mga department head, department ng mga managers, tapos kasama din yung boss. Yun, ayun, pasok din yun sa horizontal na communication. So, use of this, halimbawa, sa mga GC sa Facebook, mga group chats nyo, mga groups nyo sa ginagawa sa Facebook, isa yun, maaari magamit yung upward, downward, diagonal, and horizontal all at once. Tapos ito na, medyo malapit na tayo matapos. Employee empowerment naman and involvement. So ano ba yung employee involvement na tinatawag? Employee involvement means that every employee is regarded as a unique human being and each employee is involved in helping the organization to meet its goal. So, parang, ito pa isa, employee empowerment naman means sharing with non-managerial employees the power and authority to make and implement decisions. So, yung una natin is involvement. So, from the word itself, involvement, parang participate, parang ganun. Means that every employee is regarded as a unique human being. Each employee is involved in helping the organization to meet its goal. Parang sa isang company kasi, 'di ba, hindi naman isa lang ang gumagawa. Kailangan tulong-tulong. lahat dapat involved para patuloy na mag-strive or umangat or patuloy na lumakad yung isang company. Sa empowerment naman, meaning nito is sharing with non-managerial employees the power and authority to make and implement decision. Parang ito naman is kino-consider naman nung mga halimbawa, merong manager. Tapos parang na-feel niya parang meron naman siyang employee na ang caliber niya is managerial position pa rin. Parang bibigyan niya ng authority, bibigyan niya ng power to na mag-decide para sa kanya. Parang ito yung parang mga kanang kamay ganun. Isa yun sa yun yung meaning ng employee empowerment. Next slide tayo. The history of industrial development is replete with challenges that have changed the direction of individual companies as well as in the entire industries. Firms and institutions that were operating successfully were forced to find imaginative and innovative new ways of operating or face the prospect of extinction. New ways or new technologies were needed to accomplish what had previously been thought impossible. The past a decade or perhaps decade and a half will undoubtedly be noted as one of these critical periods in industry history. Industry groups and firms that had dominated the scene since World War II were suddenly confronted with a new and very different challenge, worldwide competition. So ito nga, kasi 'di ba hindi lang naman kasi ngayon, lalo ngayon parang sobrang common na ng mga mga yung mga nagko-compete ng mga brand ng mga gadgets ganyan. Kasi bawa ang Apple gawang Amerika, ang Huawei ito good example to kasi 'di ba nito lang parang binan yung um, China sa Amerika. So parang na-hurt yung Huawei kasi Huawei products is gawang China. So parang ang nangyari, di na sila nakiano sa Google. Gagawa kami ng sa amin, parang ganun. Bubukod na kami. Mga alalam pala kayo parang ngayon, yun yung nag-ugat na meron ng competition na panibago ngayon. Worldwide, yun yung isa sa mga worldwide competition na tinatawag. Reasonably inexpensive transportation and highly reliable communication system combined with new approaches to managing and controlling the manufacturing enterprise enabled manufacturers in all segments of the globe to compete in markets that had previously been reserved to those who manufactured where the product was marketed. Furthermore, the plateau on which the competitive battles was joined focused not just on cost but on quality, responsiveness, and flexibility, all in the name of satisfying a reawakened interest in providing customer with what they needed or they demanded. Next slide tayo. With no unique set of elements properly described all the companies or industries that were challenged by this wave of world competitiveness, many firms found that they suffered from one of the following characteristics. The customer was not recognized as having the determining influence on product attributes or performance. Tensions existed among various units and between various levels of the enterprise. No mechanism existed for setting priorities among the many desirable corporate objectives. Suppliers were treated as a necessary evil to be tolerated but not trusted, and management and labor were confrontational in attitudes and objectives. So ito parang yung mga conflicts na nangyayari sa mga companies. Ito yung mga conflicts na maaaring makaharap ng mga organizations and mga companies. Firms that manifested these characteristics, even though they were a common industry practice, found themselves at a distinct disadvantage to competitors who emphasize the customers, provide a product of high quality, and maintain an internal working environment that was stimulating and cooperative. So ito yung para nagiging difference ng karamihan sa mga company. Kung yun na mention ko kanina is parang hindi pinapahalagahan yung mga employees nila, tapos yung mga products nila is mga low quality. Yun yung nagiging doon pumapasok ang competition, parang doon may umaangat, tapos doon may bumababa. It is not an overstatement to say that many US firms or companies were confronted with the highly unpleasant alternative of changing their ways of doing business or facing extinction. It was in the environment, the new competitive environment of the mid 1970s to early 1980s, that US firms turned their attention to the development of employee involvement. So, nung mga panahon lang daw nila na yon, parang na-realize nung mga uh, mid-1970s to 1980s yung kung gaano kahalaga or ka-essential yung employee involvement sa isang company. Kasi noon parang hindi nila pinapahalagan masyado, parang sila lang nag-uusap, yung mga managers, mga bosses, hindi nila masyadong kino-consider yung feelings ng mga employee nila, ng mga manggagawa nila, ng mga workers nila, parang disregard nila yung mga opinions ng mga yon, hindi nila masyadong pinapansin or hindi nila masyado na nini-neglect nila yung mga opinions ng mga tao. Tapos parang napapansin nila yung ibang companies naman na uh, nag-implement ng involvement ng employee, parang umaangat sila, parang natatalo nila kami. Parang napansin nila na isa yun sa mga factors kung bakit parang medyo na sa. So, in-implement din nila, in-adapt din nila yung culture na yun. So, next. What is employee involvement? So, the term employee involvement means inclusion of the employee in the operation of the system. But it is the creation of the process, the tools, and the means by which this is accomplished. In That's the topic of this discussion. The two principal objectives of employee involvement are as follows. Number one is to create, share, and make real for all employees a vision of the goals for the overall enterprise as well for each organizational unit. To seek and share the knowledge possessed by individual employees in achieving that vision. So ito nga, para itong pinopoint nito is ini-involve na nila or isinasali nila yung kinoconsider na nila yung sinasabi ng mga employees, kinoconsider na nila yung opinions ng iba, kinoconsider na nila yung kung ano yung thoughts or insights, inputs ng mga employees lang or mga mabababang position sa isang company. This cannot be viewed as a grand philosophic statement of principle. Rather, it must be an operational statement of a process that calls forth a new level of participation by the employees. This statement must serve as a guide by which each employee can support the shared goals of the enterprise, while at the same time it serves as a standard against which the appropriateness of alternative actions can be assessed. Next slide tayo. Relationship of employee involvement and empowerment. Employee involvement recognizes that individual employees have the best opportunity to understand and appreciate the problems that are unique to their position. That the employees also have the greatest insight and experience in suggesting ways of solving those problems. It does not directly follow, however, that a mechanism is available by which that knowledge and experience can be put to use in solving these problems. This is the function of employee empowerment. If proper advantage is to be taken of the knowledge that the employee possesses, it is necessary for an organization to empower the employee to implement the improvements that they know to be necessary. By do by doing so, the enterprise is making the employee an integral part of the process of staying competitive. So, ang pino-point out nitong statement nito is kasi sa mga company, hindi naman natin makakaila na kahit na mataas yung position, meron diyan na ah, mas may mga bagay diyan, may mga bagay na hindi ka alam na alam ng mga tao na mas mababa sa'yo. Mas mababa yung position sa'yo. So, ang sinasabi dito is involvement para binibigyan mo ng chance or binibigyan mo ng pagkakataon yung mga tao na nasa na hinahandle mo or nasa na under mo na magbigay ng insights nila or magbigay ng opinions nila or magbigay ng ideas nila para sa um, ikalalago ng isang company. So dito pumapasok yung empowerment. Kasi pag halimbawa, merong ang isang employee, meron siyang idea, tapos parang nagustuhan mo, parang i-encourage mo siya ngayon. Tapos parang makita ng ibang employee mo na, uy, parang okay din yun ah. Tapos ngayon, ma-inspire naman siya. Ma-inspire siya na parang gusto din niya na ma-involve. Para gusto din niya na ma-empower. Gusto rin niya na ma-encourage. So, dito papasok ang relationship ng employee involvement and employee empowerment. Yung And by doing so, the enterprise is making the employee an integral part of the process of staying competitive. So parang ang nangyayari is napipilitan or na-encourage yung mga employees na mas pag-usayan pa nila, hindi sila maging stagnant or hindi sila magstay lamang dun sa position na uh, inuupuan nila, kundi parang mas motivate sila na mag-strive pa na mas pag-igihan pa nila sa kanilang work or parang ganun. Next, why was employee involvement and empowerment deemed to be so critical? So sabi dito, although size of the enterprises is not a prerequisite for being successful, certain aspects of smallness clearly make some tasks easier to achieve. Among these are the ability to achieve good communication among all employees, a common understanding of corporate and organizational objectives and goals, and a greater chance that the manager knows personally the employees who must be involved in problem solving. So sabi dito, di naman kasi sa lahat ng business is nagmamatter ang numbers. Kasi minsan, parang mas okay sa ibang companies na mas konti sila. Kasi parang ang nangyayari, pag mas konti ang tao, mas mataas yung chance na magiging mas magkakakilala yung mga tao, mas meron silang good communications among all employees. Tas dahil mas kukonti yung tao, parang mas malalaman mo kung saan siya malakas, kung saan siya mahina, kung ano yung strengths and weaknesses niya. Unlike kung marami, bigyan ko kayo ng numbers. Bawa ang employee mo is 100. Tas ang employee naman ng isa is 1,000. Mas madaling kilalanin mas madaling kilalanin lahat ang 100 kaysa kilalanin ng 1,000. Hindi po ba? Hindi ba ganun? The role of employee involvement and empowerment is, in a sense, the means by which a large organization attempts to achieve many of the benefits that are generic to the small organization. Although certain organizational structures and systems are required in larger organizations, the effort to accomplish meaningful employee involvement and empowerment is directed at preventing the organizational structure and systems from providing barriers to finding the best solution to problems. Furthermore, the involvement process provides a means of humanizing the organization and maintaining participation by individuals at all levels. A process that Performance is intended to lift the organization to new heights of competitive through the best use of the skills and interests of the individual. It is the means by which continuous improvement can be made an operating goal for all levels of an organization. An effective workforce that is encouraged to search for ways of achieving continuous improvement is a key foundation of the modern manufacturing enterprise. Employee involvement in problem identification and employee empowerment that encourages the employee to take actions in creating a more efficient and effective system are critical to becoming world class. While it is not easy for large organizations to be people oriented, their ultimate success in meeting the standards of the marketplace requires a commitment and a willingness to search for new ways of solving problems. Employee involvement is one of the keys to achieving this. The process is never ending. Employee involvement must be constantly stressed, continuously practiced, and regularly evaluated if it is to become a foundation of the company's operating philosophy. So to summarize my report, ang main topic ko is introduction of human resource management. So to conclude my report, bali ang pinaka-purpose or pinaka-function or bilang ng isang uh, pinaka parang kung ano yung ginagawa ng isang human resource management or human resource department sa isang company is sila yung bahala sa workforce. Sila yung bahala sa mga employee, sila yung bahala sa mga tauhan kung sila ba yung mag improve. Sila din yung bahala sa mga benefits, sa mga sahuran, sa mga trainings and developments. Ang HR ang uh, involved sa part na yun. And doon naman sa part na good communication doon sa HR and saka mga employees, it's much better kung mas approachable ang isang HR manager, kung mas mabait siya sa kung mas madali siyang kausapin, baba. Kasi parang ako na-try ko na din mag-work kasi sa isang construction company. So, doon sa construction company na pinag-workan ko, meron ding HR doon. And yung HR naman namin doon is approachable siya. So, parang napansin ko mas harmonious yung relationship. Mas harmonious yung communication. Parang mas nabibiro siya, ganun. Mas madali siyang lapitan. Halimbawa, advance ng sahod or mangungutang or what. Mas maganda yung flow ng communication, mas maganda yung flow ng usapan sa isang company kung yung HR manager or HR staff is mas approachable. So doon naman sa involvement and empowerment, ang pinaka main point doon is kasi sa isang company naman lahat naman yan hindi naman siguro lahat. Siguro most of the people in a company started at the lowest level, contractual or uh, yung mga minimum wage, and as time goes by, uh, they im- they learn to improve themselves, they learn to involve, and as they learn to nung natuto na mag-involve sa mga uh, concerns about sa company, parang ang magiging empowerment, mag-empower sa kanila or lalo encourage sa kanila is yung kanilang mga superiors or kanilang mga bosses. So, yun lang, yun lang po yung aking part ng medyo mahaba. Pasensya na po. Maraming salamat.